Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mark Caruso. I am an Adobe Digital Media account executive responsible for strategic education accounts in both the US and Canada. My primary job function is to interface with academic and administrative stakeholders to understand what the strategic imperatives are at the school in question and figure out how Adobe and its solutions might align to supporting the achievement of their stated goals and objectives. That can mean many different things to different people. To faculty, it might mean supporting the creation of a more engaging and interactive learning environment. To students, it might mean empowering them to acquire valuable digital literacy, fluency, and agility skills, which will serve them during their studies and, of course, post-graduation when they go out into the workforce. Today's session is focused on career branding, but it could have easily been called digital storytelling. And the reason for that is building a career brand, sharing a narrative, regardless of what that narrative might be. What is important to retain is that the effectiveness of your message will be influenced by the means through which you share that message and your ability to resonate with your target audience. And that's where Adobe comes in. We, as many of you probably know, make industry standard solutions that are leveraged for any manner of type of communication, whether it be for UI UX design, whether it be for audio and video or visual storytelling, whether it be for image and video and audio editing. You have all of that at your disposal in the Creative Cloud ecosystem. The individual who's going to be speaking is a gentleman by the name of Todd Taylor. We are going to share a recorded session from the Adobe Max conference back in October, which was a conference that we hosted online for upwards of 300,000 participants. It was an absolute behemoth, but it worked. And the reason we're sharing the recording of Todd's speech is that Todd is actually doing another session for Boise State University in Idaho today. He's meeting with the president, provost, and a number of deans to talk about an initiative there. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen. And before I play Todd's video, I just want to show you one piece of data that I think you will find interesting and relevant. This is a document that Todd and I put together for the Rochester Institute of Technology because they are considering, like Boise State, becoming what is known as a creative campus. And essentially what a creative campus is a school that is infusing Creative Cloud into teaching and learning across curricula, across disciplines, and a school that is making a commitment to digital literacy, fluency, and agility, again, across curricula, across disciplines. And one of the schools that went down this path a number of years ago, Clemson University in South Carolina, shared some really interesting data with us. It was an eye-opener for them as well. They showed that the adoption by major it far exceeded what they were hoping to see. And most interesting, perhaps, is that the top three majors were business, engineering, and architecture, arts, and humanities. That third one may not come as a surprise, but what was a surprise for many was that business and engineering saw adoption rates of 92 to 95%. What I mean by that is students regularly checking into the Adobe Creative Cloud to create digital assets to either complement their work, support their work, or build a digital portfolio or create a career brand. And this is without a doubt the most used piece of software at Clemson University and at many other institutions that we work with. And so it's very telling that when you understand the value proposition and you understand what these solutions can do to help complement your story, it'll more likely resonate with your target audience. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and play that video. And maybe before I do, I'll just wish you all good luck. And I hope you're enjoying the conference so far. It's been amazing on my side to see what you guys are all up to. So here we go.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Max 2021. So glad you're here. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Todd Taylor, and I have two job titles. For Adobe, I am a pedagogical evangelist working in higher education. And at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, I'm an English professor and writing program instructor. Today, we're going to talk about the intersection of career branding and digital storytelling, with a focus on helping students, especially, prepare for the workforce by thinking about developing themselves as a career brand, and to do that from a framework or a lens of digital storytelling. This session is for anyone, any student, any professional who might be thinking about trying to get some different perspective on developing their career brand. But it's especially designed for instructors like myself who find themselves teaching and mentoring all kinds of students and helping them think about developing their career brand. This is not just for creative professionals. In fact, in many ways, it's for folks who don't have necessarily that much focus on what they want to do professionally, but are thinking about ways that they can use Adobe Creative Cloud to develop and promote themselves in the world of work. And so I'm going to outline today 10 different principles or key ideas for developing your career brand as a digital story. This session is not going to be a technical tutorial on how to do a headshot, how to make a web page. What it's going to be is more of the long picture, the intrinsic motivation to think about what it is I'm trying to accomplish as someone who's trying to get a job or earn an internship or get a fellowship. And how can I put digital materials together in order to tell my own story? And so I'm going to organize today's talk according to 10 principles. Principle number 1 is the big picture. This is the most important idea to keep in mind. To think about what you're trying to do as a student developing your own career brand. And it is this: to take control of your own story in your own voice to represent your authentic self. This is a goal of agency and self-efficacy and empowerment. The world has changed dramatically. And one of the great things about that is people are much more understanding of uniqueness and difference, and how everyone has special qualities and abilities to bring to any organization. And so when I was on the job market, I thought applying for a job or establishing my career brand was mostly about demonstrating a pedigree, going to an elite school, having a high grade point average, doing well on standardized testing. That's not the case anymore. In fact, after 25 years of being a professional, what I have found is that pedigree is not nearly as important as match. That makes it even that much more important to tell your story, to define your uniqueness, and to identify who you are, and to take control and have agency over that story. And so that's what this entire session is about. And obviously, we're going to use Adobe Creative Cloud and those incredible digital solutions for telling that story. But at the end of the day, what's more important than anything is that kind of authenticity and that kind of agency and self-efficacy. And so number 2 on our list of principles is something that my mentor from graduate school when I was earning my PhD told me. And this has made such a huge difference in my life and the lives of so many students that I've mentored. Principle number 2 is to find someone ahead of you on a career path that you would like to follow, someone who's been successful, and study their story, their resume, their journey as inspiration, not legislation. And what I mean by that is you want to see how they navigated this career path. You don't want to directly imitate them, but you want to use them as a template, as inspiration for shaping your own unique career path. And so in order to do that today, I'm going to share as that kind of inspiration the digital portfolio from a student of mine who recently graduated, who's been very successful. I'm pleased to introduce Valentina Arizmendi. And I sat down with her at a safe distance during COVID, and I interviewed her about her digital portfolio and about the development of her career brand and the thoughts and perspectives she had on doing that. And we're going to use her as exactly this kind of example.
My first year, I took a personal branding class, and my professor asked us, what is the first thing that you do when you're about to apply to a job? And I said, well, I Googled the company. And so after he got all of our responses, he said, so don't you think that it makes sense that when you're applying to a job, the hiring manager would Google you as well? And that's when I realized yes, someone is going to Google me, I want to be in control of what shows up on the internet when you type in my name.
What happens as you start to think in these ways about developing a career brand is that the documents and the resumes and the portfolios and the materials and the cover letters that you develop to apply for jobs or internships or fellowships become much more than a laundry list, a checklist of the things you've done to demonstrate that you're worthy. They become a narrative. They become a story with a character, with a shape. And you are that character. You are the center of that story. There's a famous movie that has a great title that I've never seen. It's called The Greatest Story Ever Told, and it's about the Bible. And I've always thought that was a great movie title. Think of your career brand and your digital and professional assets as the greatest story you're ever going to tell. And so here, let's listen to Valentina talk about how she evolved from thinking of her materials as a list of things to something much more.
I first started seeing my portfolio as a gallery. So it was really just pictures at that point. But towards my second and third year, there were starting to be articles that I was writing or being written about. There were also videos and presentations that I was making. And I realized this doesn't just have to be a gallery of projects. I can add in everything I've done and just have something tangible to show for all of my experiences, whether it's photos, videos, just a blog post. I could add in whatever it was that I was doing and find in an organized way, a way to fit it all in this package.
Number 3 on this list of principles is start early and never stop. Start early to build even a hypothetical resume, cover letter, digital portfolio, like Valentina did, and then constantly add to it, constantly scaffold on it. Because when you're doing this now, these materials don't, they're not just some kind of cold document that you use to certify that you accomplished something. They become your journal, your reflection, your way of thinking your way through a degree program or through a career. So it becomes almost a reflective journal that you're using internally as much as you're using it externally to demonstrate who you are and what you can do. And so think of these materials and this development of your career brand as something that you're never done doing. And here we're going to listen to Valentina talk about the influence of starting this early in her career path.
I started my portfolio my first year at UNC, and originally it was for a class assignment for a digital storytelling class. And at that point, that was the only thing that was on it, that first class assignment. But the benefits of starting it early is that it grew naturally. The next semester, when I took a different storytelling class, I added my projects from there. The following year, it was kind of the same thing. Each semester, when it came time for the final projects, I would go back and add in what I had done for that year. So it really wasn't a heavy task. I just added in as I turned things in, gave it a little description. I made sure to take photos along the way of my process, added a little summary and a reflection, just so that you could get a complete idea of everything I did during that project.
And so as an English professor, of course, I thought a lot about literature. I thought about storytelling. I thought a lot about narrative. And we all understand the basics there. There needs to be some kind of character. There's some kind of setting, some kind of context. And there needs to be some kind of dramatic tension, some kind of intrigue, something unique and different about the story we're listening to. Now, when we're talking about story in terms of career branding and professional development, we're not, of course, talking about fiction. We're talking about really important nonfiction. We're also not promoting the idea of melodrama. We don't want to make this really dramatic and bring people to tears, but we want it to be a human story, an organic story, an authentic story that's unique, that's unlike other stories we've told, that has some intrigue, that draws people in and makes them want to learn more about you and your career brand.
After I had Googled myself, I realized there was really nothing on the internet out there about me. And so I wanted to change that, but I first had to figure out what it was that I wanted the internet to say about me. And so I started writing down some adjectives. I wanted to be known as creative. I wanted people to think that I was fun to work with, that I was a good team player. And so I really started making those design choices that reflected that. I didn't want just a standard headshot photo of me. I wanted a fun graphic. When I was writing my summary, I didn't want it to be something that was copied and pasted from LinkedIn, something that sounded like anyone could have written it about me. I wanted my voice to come through and make it sound like a conversation so that the person looking at it would be encouraged to reach out to me. They would know that I'm friendly enough to write you a message back.
And so in order to do that, we want to think of developing a career brand. And we're going to pause for a moment and think about the most famous career brands in the world, right? And so for these purposes, I can't show you corporate icons or logos. But, if I were to say to you, imagine in your mind a giant M that's either yellow or gold in shape with rounded tops at the top of that M, what brand is that going to make you think of immediately? And then what associations are you going to have with that brand? If I were to say to you, you're looking at a piece of athletic apparel or shoes and it has 3 stripes on it, what brand is that going to bring to your mind? If I say in front of you is a tin can, a beverage can, and that can is red and has a white curvy stripe on it, how many seconds is it going to take for you to recognize that brand? And so let's think for a moment about how branding works. I don't know how many folks of today's generations are aware of the norms of the Old West, where ranchers used to brand their livestock with a hot iron so that they could differentiate their cattle from a neighbor's cattle, so that when they go to market, they could differentiate the quality of their cattle versus someone else, right? And so if we think about that word branding, how do those corporate logos work? How does branding work? How can you establish your own career brand? And I'd like to suggest there are at least 4 different approaches to this. Brands work first on differentiation so that you can separate one product from another, so that you can separate yourself from someone else who's applying for the same opportunity. They work through association. You only have so much time to look at a billboard, a sign, or in this case, your digital portfolio resume. What values are going to be associated with what you see at first glance? And that's another important aspect to branding, is that it has to encapsulate. It has to almost thematically represent those ideas that are associated or you want to be associated with the brand. And then in order for that brand to be effective, it has to repeat. And so we're going to use those principles of corporate branding to think about how you can brand yourself. Principle number 5, differentiation. Create a digital portfolio that demonstrates and differentiates your unique superpowers. When we do this in my class, we use either Creative Cloud Express to create a rudimentary web page, like the one that is referenced here in this presentation. Or you could do it like Valentina did, which is to use Adobe Portfolio, which is a much more robust and easy to customize approach to digital portfolio building. You choose whichever approach is right for you. The most important point here, though, is you want to think about what it is employers value. What are the abilities, the skills that they are looking for? If you think about, the classic 4 C's of higher education: to communicate, to collaborate, to creatively problem solve, and to think critically, some version of those skills need to become the scenes, the key episodes in your digital story in developing your career brand. And so if we listen to what Valentina is saying here, she's talking about how she thought about the values that employers are looking for, and then she designed and included the elements on her portfolio to deliver exactly a demonstration of those abilities.
What my digital portfolio did for me is that it added different elements that a piece of paper resume couldn't do. So it painted a better picture. You could see not just my work, rather than just being described by words, you could actually see what it was that I had created. So you could see like sneak peeks of what I would be able to do for you if I worked for you. It was more trustworthy rather than me just writing it down on a piece of paper. You were actually able to see what it was that I had done.
Principle number 6. If there is one ability right now in 2021 that's more valuable than anything, as we are continuing to deal with the aftermath of a global pandemic. It's versatility and resilience. Versatility and resilience. So you want to be sure that the career brand you are developing associates with those values. That as you look, for example, right now at Valentina's portfolio, look at the array of different things she's done. Look at all the different contexts she's worked in and all the different audiences she's worked to reach. In a 10-second glance, anyone could look at this and see that this person isn't just digitally literate, isn't just digitally fluent, but is digitally resilient, versatile, and agile.
I wanted to be able to show that I was adaptable to whatever medium you were asking me to communicate in, and also about whatever story you were trying to have me tell. So across a variety of disciplines and subjects, I've done work that's related to it. And that's kind of what I wanted to have in my portfolio, something that put together everything so that it was more versatile. You could see that whatever you throw at me, I would be ready because I've done it in the past.
We also talked about how career brands work according to repetition. One of the reasons that we are so familiar with a giant yellow M or three-striped athletic apparel or a red can of soda is through the repetition of that brand. And so when developing your portfolio, you want to repeat the themes of what you're able to do. And so if we look here at Valentina's design on her Adobe portfolio, there's the branding. She actually produced a logo in the top left-hand corner. And then if you click on any of these projects, you see the same kind of perspective and value. What these things consistently do, each of these elements in her portfolio, is they demonstrate how she is a digital storyteller. She is telling all different kinds of stories in all different kinds of contexts.
When I was starting to put the elements in my portfolio together, so everything from the logo, the graphics, the color scheme, I wanted it to be cohesive no matter what page you were on, so that you could see that I really put thought into everything that I added into my portfolio. It wasn't just things that I was adding in to take up space and to make up content. I wanted it to have a purpose.
And so principle number 8 is encapsulation. You know, famous corporate brands have very basic graphic designs with bold colors, so that it just at the quickest glance, even in your peripheral vision, you associate, the values of that product, and you have impressions on how much you like that product. Same thing here when you are career branding yourself. Everyone has always said that, employers will look at a resume at first glance no longer than 30 seconds. Well, it's hard to tell much of a story in 30 seconds. So what you want a resume to do is encourage folks to dive a little bit deeper and go over to a digital portfolio. But that digital portfolio has to work on the same principle, that in a glance of 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you're going to have an impression that's going to start establishing that career brand and start telling your story. And so as we look through the design choices that Valentina has made, and we listen to her describe some of those choices, think about, how she is encapsulating at a glance themes, impressions, associations, values, abilities that anyone within 10 seconds can appreciate. Principle number 9 is to use as much bandwidth as you can to manage to tell your story and develop your career brand. And this is the reality of today's digitally transformed world. And this is where Adobe Creative Cloud can be especially helpful to you in developing this career brand and telling your story. Think about digital storytelling now. Think about the way we used to, when I was growing up, I would go to a typesetter who would make one version of my resume, and we would put it on, 50 copies of really expensive paper. And that resume wouldn't change much for 6 months to a year. That's laughable these days, when basically the standard is to almost customize your resume for everything you're applying to. Not to mention that if we all are going to be working in worlds that have been in economies and cultures that have been digitally transformed, those old print-based approaches suggest that we're not part of this new world. And we obviously don't want to do that. However, it's also kind of demanding to think that not only do you have to have a professional resume, a print-based version of it, even though you'll probably only share it on PDF digitally, you have to do that. And yet at the same time, you can enhance that with video, with audio, with podcasts, with graphics, with infographics, with photographs that demonstrate. They don't just claim that you have experiences and abilities. They show potential employers that you have those abilities. And so use as much bandwidth as you are comfortable to create a three-dimensional version of your own story and your own authentic self. Again, according to principle 1, in your own words. Look at the variety of different assets that Valentina has here. That's a lot to manage. I'm not suggesting that you try to tell your story equally in 5 or 6 different modalities. What I am saying is that if you are comfortable telling a version of your story as a video, I would include that. If you're comfortable telling that story as a podcast, or as an infographic, or as a photo gallery, or as a magazine article, or as even a meme, you should do that because it demonstrates that kind of versatility, and it gives audiences as many chances as possible to try to engage with your story.
I think COVID-19 threw us all for a loop, nothing that we were expecting. And those who were able to adapt quickly were able to perform the best. So I think that's what employers are looking for now. Like, if the world was to turn completely upside down, would this candidate be ready? And that's something that you can show in your portfolio, because you can show, well, I easily adapted from like 1D mediums of just words to all of these digital technologies that I was able to pick up quickly.
And so the idea is to tell a complete digital story these days. You need to be versatile enough to talk in all kinds of different channels and modalities. And that can be very difficult, except for that's what Creative Cloud is designed to do. You bring in all of your assets into Creative Cloud, and then it's relatively easy to mix and remix them in these different modalities instead of trying to start from scratch and build each of these different sort of presentations of your story independently. Principle number 10, get yourself some mentors, plural, and never walk alone. And so I tell students this all of the time. Even at my age, after 25 years of being a professor and a professional, I still need mentors. I need a mentor for every stage of my career development and for developing my career brand. And you should never try to do this alone, because so much of what you are trying to accomplish has to do with communicating ideas and complex ideas and representation of you and yourself, and eventually the folks you work with in the companies you work for. That can't be done. You can't develop a sense of audience and how to connect and communicate in those very important ways all by yourself in isolation. And so think about, earlier we recommended finding someone who's ahead of you on a career path that you might want to follow. Ideally, that person can become a mentor for you, at least in one stage of your development. And to close off, another important reason to have a mentor is that these assets that you create, your resume, your cover letters, your digital portfolio, your LinkedIn site, all of the things that are now going to tell your story and develop your career brand, they have to be done through a process of drafting, feedback, revision, drafting, feedback, revision. And as we said earlier, you're never done telling this story. And so you're going to need constant feedback on all the choices you're going to make, because you know that they have to be done professionally.
In the early stages of my portfolio, I was getting some feedback from the companies that I had been applying to. And one recruiter told me, I looked at your portfolio and it wasn't the production value of your projects that impressed me. It was the fact that I knew you could communicate to a wide audience. You would be able to communicate to the audience that I want you to communicate to. And so that helped me realize that I want to be hired for my storytelling skills. And that's when I really was able to zoom in on that factor. And now that's what I say that I am. I'm a storyteller. And if you look on my portfolio, that's exactly what it says.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And I especially want to thank Valentina Arizmendi for being the generous case study to talk about empowering you to tell your story and developing your career brand in your own way. Again, if you want advice on how to do a headshot or how to, what font to pick for a resume, that's available all over the internet. But these kinds of principles, to me, in my experience, have been very powerful for my students, thinking about the long view, thinking about how to develop the intrinsic motivation and connection and perception of how and why you want to develop a career brand and digital assets in the first place. My name is Todd Taylor, and I'm really grateful to spend this time with you today. Thank you.
Hey, folks. Can you hear me okay, Theo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I hope the video came through loud and clear. I hope it was beneficial for you all. I think what we tried to impart again was that building a career brand, telling a story are relevant, regardless of what your field of study might be, regardless of what your career pursuits might be. Just by way of example, I recently completed an executive MBA at the John Molson School of Business at Concordia. And one of the projects that we had to do was to pitch a business idea to a room filled with venture capitalists. And, I'm sure this won't come as a surprise, but we utilized Adobe's tools heavily to tell that story. And we could see, and we specifically used a product called Adobe XD, which is a mobile prototyping, a mobile app prototyping tool that is part of the Creative Cloud. What we wanted to convey was our idea. So what our idea would look like on a mobile or as a mobile app on a smartphone or a tablet, without actually going through the coding and development work required to build the app, which would come at a later date. And it was very well received. It helped us to add some substance and some clout and some credibility to the message that we were sharing. And so I just wanted to make sure that you were all aware of this. I will share one more thing because I do think this is relevant for you, possibly even for this this competition. Let me just pull it up. I've shared this in the booth as well. Theo, I think you can see this come through, but it's about creativity and digital literacy across the STEM curriculum. There are some interesting examples here that I think will resonate with you. This is an engineering example of students, completing a project using various Adobe products, but being able to tell a story very effectively. And why this is relevant, if you look further down, we've got examples of students, for example, Vincent Fu, who's a medical student. And I passed Vincent, I think I passed his, this is it. So Vincent Fu is a medical student who also started his own company, a medical device equipment company. And he was able to do this in large part, he credits to his proficiency with the Adobe Creative Cloud, because he could elicit donations, he could solicit industry partners to support his project by painting a picture of what it is he was trying to accomplish, the outcomes he was trying to drive towards, and his overall idea for the project in his particular case. Another quick example is this individual, Hilary Angeles, who's a former student from the Philippines, who secured a $250,000 scholarship to MIT in Boston because she won a global science contest. And in the contest, she was able to explain the theory of relativity to a group of lay people who had no science background. And she did so, of course, using the Creative Cloud to tell that story and leverage digital resources and digital assets to make people understand what it is that she was sharing. So again, all of these examples are relevant. And to refer back to Todd's presentation, Valentina Arizmendi landed a six-figure salary right out of college, working for a Silicon Valley company. I don't know if you can figure out which one, but she did that because she was able to show people that she had abilities that would not only respond to the job that she was applying for, but that might be applicable in other areas of the organization. And I just want you to all recognize that there are benefits to you not only for this conference, but also throughout your studies and post-graduation when you enter into the workforce. So hopefully you found that useful. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out. And Theo, I hope I'll pass the floor back to you, but I hope you guys enjoy the rest of the conference, and good luck to all the teams participating.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. I mean, the entire video, especially Todd, him being also having experience as an employer and also as a teacher, seeing how students wanted themselves to apply to these positions and seeing the struggles the students had, because they may have all the technical skills, they have the best skills, but if you're not able to share it with someone, because oftentimes the person who is the employer is an HR person, which probably doesn't have the same technical skills as you do, but you do have to communicate that story. And of course, Creative Cloud is probably one of the best ways to do so.
Theo, you understood it completely. One of the challenges Todd had, really quickly, if I'm sorry for going over on time, but
No worries.
Todd is a professor emeritus at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. We've since hired him, Adobe has since hired him, and he is now an Adobe pedagogical evangelist, aside from being a professor emeritus. But part of the reason why he works for Adobe is because he had to share this narrative with the deans and the chancellor at the University of North Carolina, because he was trying to secure their support to infuse Creative Cloud into the first year creative writing program, or first year English program, which is a program, if for those of you that are familiar with US based institutions, it's a program that everybody must take, or a class that everybody must take. So you've gotten into university, you have to take this mandatory English class so that people can ensure that you have the necessary abilities to communicate effectively. But to Todd, that meant much more than simply knowing how to write properly, right? So knowing grammar, knowing syntax, knowing punctuation. It meant communicating, leveraging the media that people use to consume content. And if you can figure out how to do that, then you're more likely to be able to get that message across to your target audience and have that message resonate with them. And so it's just been a fantastic story. And as a result, the University of North Carolina ended up covering all 32,000 students with Creative Cloud, because they looked at this not as a solution that was for a subset of users, but a solution that was applicable to all, because everybody's got a story to tell. And you want to do it as effectively as you can. So that's it for me.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And for everyone else watching, just a quick note, the networking event will be at 5 o'clock. So we're looking to having you there as well, Mark. And you can go see him as well there and ask all your questions. He will be around.
I will do my best to be there. I've got 2 children under the age of 6 who should be home any minute now. So it might be a little tough, but I'll try. I'll try.
We're looking forward to having you there, and awesome. Have a good rest of the event for everyone else.
Thanks, everybody. Good luck. Bye now.